الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين أما بعد. So as we continue discussing the book Mukhtasar Nukhbatul Fikr by Hafid Ibn Hajar, the original book by Hafid Ibn Hajar rahimahullah. So as we mentioned before in our previous lessons, that this book Nukhbatul Fikr by Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani rahimahullah is considered to be one of the main books of hadith regarding what is referred to as ilm al-mustalah, al-hadith. And in the last session that we start discussing the book, where we covered, as the author rahimahullah, he opened by discussing a hadith al-mutawatir. So he mentioned regarding that a hadith by way of out of wusul ilayna, by which the hadith have reached us, that either by two pathways, one mutawatir or the second ahad. Then he went on to discuss regarding the first pathway regarding the hadith reaching us, which is al-mutawatir. So as we had mentioned, so we discussed certain of the masail or certain matters that relates to a hadith mutawatir. So of those things that we have covered regarding what is mutawatir, hadith mutawatir, linguistically, as we mentioned, tawatir tatabbu. So al-mutawatir tataba. So that's concerning hadith from linguistic meaning. Then also we mentioned concerning istilahan, where the ulama have given a definition regarding hadith mutawatir. So overall, regarding concerning mention, ma rawahu jam tuhil al-ada تواترهم على الكذب والخطأ عن مثلهم إلى منتهى وكان مستند الأخبار أخبارهم إلى الحس. Then أنا mentioned وأخبره عن العلم لا عن الظن. So that's the general overall definition that is mentioned, where a hadith mutawatir is a narration that has been transmitted by many in all the tabaqat from the start through to the end, where also they have not cooperate and agreed upon lying or an error, and this information, it is something that they have either all witnessed or have heard. So that's concerning hadith al-ahad, or hadith al-mutawatir. So we discuss concerning a matter, we discuss concerning regarding hadith mutawatir, as in the field of hadith, in hadith science, that of the first to have discussed this within the science of hadith is Khatib al-Baghdadi in his book al-Kifaya. Then after you find it then became discussed, you find also Ibn Salah, he discussed in hadith al-Mashhur, but didn't go into much detail. Then we'll find the likes of the ulama who came after of them, Ibn Hajar, also discuss this, and then we'll find others who start to go into detail discussion regarding hadith al-mutawatir. But before, it was not covered as it is covered later on initially, but ulama men who discussed it never go into that detail, but then later on, then more detail start to be mentioned regarding hadith mutawatir. And the detail of hadith mutawatir, it came by what was taken from the books of usul al-fiqh. Then it was transmitted or mentioned, it was transmitted over into the books of hadith and the books of mustalah. So, and also we discuss concerning that with mutawatir, that the ulama of old of hadith, Bukhari, Muslim, and those who at times may use the word mutawatir, that it does not carry the same meaning as it became known as later on. So the definition that we have as for mutawatir, even the books of hadith, that definition was the standard use then. So Imam Bukhari, Imam Muslim, and others who use the word mutawatir, that what their intent concerning hadith was like shuhra. So shuhra hadith was well known. But it does not to reach a certain number, a large number of narrators, as it became known as after. So it was used, yes, but not in the same meaning then as it became known today. But this is the established meaning that is followed as we gave concerning a large group of narrators from start to end, mentioning something that they all witnessed and seen, and they did not agree upon lying or an error. And that some mention يفيد العلم ضروري or yaqini, as stated by others. The next matter we discuss regarding tawatur, after giving the meaning, that a lot of the points that are mentioned regarding hadith mutawatir, that are mentioned in the books of Mustala al-Hadith, that a lot of those information are taken from the books of Usul al-Fiqh, from the mutaakhirin. So starting with Khatib al-Baghdadi and those that follow Ibn Salah, even though I did not mention much, then start to be discussed in the books of Hadith in some more detail, but most of that information was taken from the books of Usul al-Fiqh. Also the ulama discuss a hadith mutawatir that have shurut. As of those who mention, there are 3 shurut, 3 conditions. Those who mention 4, those who mention 5, and those who mention more than this. As we mentioned that Ibn Jama', I've mentioned that the condition of hadith mutawatir goes back to 3 conditions, as we have stated in the last lesson. Then also we discussed regarding concerning that with mutawatir, of the ulama discussed regarding the condition that how many narrators need to be mentioned in each tabaqa, in each generation of those who have transmitted the hadith. So on each level of those who have transmitted the hadith, what's the least amount of people narrated that are required to make considered to be a large number? Those who mention that it has to be 3, have to be above 3. Those who mention 7, those who mention 10, those who mention different numbers, that even some mention hundreds. But there's no clear dalil regarding what's the least amount of number. There's no clear dalil regarding the 3 so they mentioned that it could exceed from 3 upwards, from 3 onwards, but without putting a specific number, and that's the call which is Raja, that there's no specific number of narrator to make this group. That has to be 10, not less than 10, above 15, above 20. There's no such evidence to specify the number of people required. Also we discussed regarding hadith mutawatir that they discuss al-yafid al-ilm al-yaqini wal-ilm al-dururi, and all these ibara, Abu said, those are more things that have been mentioned by the ulama of Usul al-Fiqh on this matter. Also regarding that hadith al-mutawatir, as some of the ulama have mentioned regarding that, is it required for the person to look into the adala of the narrators? Is it in hadith mutawatir to look into the adala, the level of the credibility of the narrators, and the level of credibility of the narrators? Of the ulama mentioned that in hadith mutawatir that this is not needed, but they mention but they give some tafsil that in hadith that are said to be, but they divide hadith also mutawatir into hadith lafdan wa mana, mutawatir lafdan wa mana. So hadith al mutawatir lafzi wa manawi, where both meaning and the wording are the same, and they said that in this category you find us few hadith fall into this category. So hadith are said to be mutawatir, that have many narrators, that them all agreeing on one set wording with the same meaning, is just a few hadith that they mention may fall into this category. And the most famous of this hadith that they mention, the hadith man kadhiba alayya, man kadhiba alayya muta'ammidan. So they mention this hadith is narrated by many, and all use the same similar wording. They mention that this is of those hadith, but they mention so that the hadith considered to be that hadith of mutawatir lafdan wa ma'na. That's the first category. They said on that category, of that category, is not required if the hadith is of this that for one to look into the credibility of all the narrator. But as for the second category, hadith mutawatir ma'nawi, so the meaning is what they agree upon, which is a portion of the, so a particular meaning is agreed upon. So they mentioned that many you might find more hadith of mutawatir, or majority of hadith of mutawatir fall into this category, where you find that the meaning a part of the meaning is somewhat what is said to be that most kind of somewhat converge or more agree in that meaning. So a hadith of, they discuss many hadith that fall into this category. The hadith concerning that, for example, as-salat al-khamsa fall into this. Siyam Ramadan, the many hadith that talks about the virtue of fast Ramadan. So the mutawatir regarding most of those hadith, or many hadith mentioned regarding that one fast in the month of Ramadan. Also they mention rafa yadayn fi dua. So the person rafa yadayn fi dua, that the Prophet ﷺ, that he raised his hand on a different situation, circumstance. So it shows that he mutawatir regarding him raising his hand in dua. So they mentioned also regarding hadith that and other hadith that fall into this particular category, as we had mentioned before. So on this type of hadith, mutawatir manawi, that in those cases one still need to look into the adala of the rawat. One still need to look into the adala of the rawat, not as in the first case. So that's concerning matters I will mention that now of the ulama, and of those also have viewed mutawatir as a way kind of somewhat that have been a way to go around, become a tool used by some to kind of somewhat dismiss certain hadith. So this matter regarding hadith being said to be mutawatir, and those that are not said to be not mutawatir, a hadith al-ahad, that has been used by some to dismiss many hadith, or to dismiss some hadith. So matters regarding aqidah, some try to dismiss certain hadith by stating that in matters of aqidah, they only go with hadith with the mutawatir, and not a hadith with a hadith al-ahad in some matters of things of the unseen. And that's a deviation from the path of the Salaf al-Salih, from the Sahaba and the Tabi'een, that did not follow this manhaj, this methodology. And matters so of those who use a hadith mutawatir for evil means or evil ends, and so want to be mindful of this. Then we'll end, we mention also books that have been gathered, or books that have been written on this particular topic, and we cited some books regarding a hadith mutawatir, and of those as Suyuti, but and others who have written on this topic. So we go into the next matter regarding what the author Rahimahullah Ibn Hajar mentioned next, which is after mutawatir, then he mentioned الثاني المشهور وهو المستفيد على رأي. So he mentioned Rahimahullah Ta'ala of the next type of hadith to be discussed is this category referred to as mashhur, hadith al-mashhur. We mentioned وهو المستفيض على رأي. So على رأي indicates that there's a khilaf between the ulama. There's a khilaf between the ulama. So we discussed concerning al-mashhur, that he mentioned يسمى مشهورا as linguistically something mashhur concerning that, shuhra, something becomes that is ظهور وواضح. So mashhur, that something somewhat is very apparent, something which is muntashir, something that is well known and is spread and spreads wide. So there's something which is somewhat well known and established. This is mashhur. Istilahan in the ulama of hadith, when I discuss concerning hadith al-mashhur, that I mention ما رواه ثلاثة فأكثر في كل طبقة من طبقات ولم يبلغ حد المتواتر. So mashhur is said to be, as we defined, هو ما رواه ثلاثة. So mashhur is what is narrated by more than three and above narrators in all its level, all its different tabaqat levels. ولم يبلغ متواتر, and it has not reached the level of mutawatir. So that's concerning hadith al-mashhur. Of the ulama regarding mashhur, so we have that definition concerning al-mashhur. Then as for, of the ulama all concerned, mashhur and mustafid is the same thing, and those who hold that, they are not the same thing, they are different. And I mentioned al-ra'yin بعض ulama, based upon the opinion of some of the ulama. So of the ulama who hold that mashhur and mustafid, that they are the same thing. So the definition that we give for mashhur will be the definition of mustafid. So father, as they mentioned regarding concern, sala is something that is running, that which is kathrat, so should have something that it is many. So again, concerning father, shows something that it is many. So this concerning that the meaning wa intashar wa sha'a, that's concerning father. So again, khilaf between the ulama regarding this matter, that of the ulama who kind of somewhat give different definition or difference between both. So you find regarding concern that as they mentioned that this matter regarding concerning al-hadith al-mashhur that author rahimahullah he wished to discuss, that he mentions that with this, that of those who hold that both mashhur wal hadith al-mustafid, that they are the same thing, but then you find that those who hold that there's a difference between both. So of those who hold that there's a difference between both, so they mentioned regarding concern that that of the ulama who mentioned that both are the same, and those who say different. Of those who mention the difference between both, of those who mention أن المستفيد يكون في ابتداء, that hadith al-mustafid is not hadith from the start إلى منتهى سواء. So in all the levels from the start to the end, that the number of narrators, they are the same number. والمشهور أهم. So mashhur, you might find that the numbers may vary, but they're still above 3. But with mustafid, that there's consistency in the same number from start to end. But with mashhur, that it may not be the case. Also, those who mention regarding al-mustafid, we mention an ma talaqqathu al-umma bil-qabul, that hadith what is said to be mustafid, that it's of those hadith that have not reached mutawatir, but is accepted by the ummah, without per se the number being of that of I number, but the being mutawatir, but it has been accepted by the ummah. So that's concerning. And also another view of the ulama who mentioned al-mustafid huwa al-mutawatir. Al-mustafid wal mutawatir khilaf al-mashhur, where mashhur is not said to be mutawatir. But the ulama who hold that mustafid is also used as mutawatir, whereas mashhur is somewhat different. Which is mashhur with them, it is a qism, is a category of hadith al-ahad. So mashhur is a qism, is a branch of hadith al-ahad. So you have those different between ulama regarding the difference between al-mustafid wal mashhur. So that's that discussion. They mentioned regarding concern that so that's concerning mashhur, that where it is a level of hadith above, as we said, 3 rawat in all tabaqat, 3 or more, but have not reached a level of mutawatir, have not reached a level of mutawatir. That's said to be hadith al-mashhur. So that's concerned istilahan. Then also the ulama of hadith, that they use the word mashhur to have a second meaning. So that's concerned that mashhur by way of the isnad. So mashhur by way of the isnad, where as mentioned, as we state regarding that al-mashhur ma rawahu thalatha fa akthar, that there in each tabaqat of the isnad, that is that we'll find that 3 or more narrators, but it haven't reached from the start through to the end, but they have not reached the level of mutawatir. That is hadith al-mashhur. So hadith al-mashhur, the condition is that 3 or more narrator have to be present in each of the tabaqat. So my one tabaqa, you find 4, another you find 5, another you find 3, another you find maybe 6. So 3 or more, but have not yet reached mutawatir. So that's concerning hadith al-mashhur. So the number may fluctuate. As for concerning consistency in the number from start to end, then some have defined that is hadith al-mustafid. Some have said that is hadith mustafid. So a slight difference between the ulama on this matter. So with mustafid, they'll see it as 3 in one tabakat upon 3 in another tabakat upon 3. So from start through to the end is consistent of having 3 or 4 or 5. That is with mustafid according to some of the ulama, but that is as stated with some of the ulama on what is mustafid. And also mustafid, I mentioned that talaqat umma bil qubul, without per se giving attention to the numbers, without giving to the attention to the number, even though, and some mention that it is the same mustafid as that of mutawatir. And as we mentioned, so that's concerning those aqwal between the ulama on this matter. They said that an example of hadith, مثال al-mashhur, hadith mashhur, that they mention, إن الله لا يقبل العلم انتزاعا. So they mention of a hadith that is in Bukhari and Muslim. There's an example of hadith that fall into the category of mashhur. They mention the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, إن الله لا يقبل العلم انتزاعا, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not remove ilm abruptly. ينتزعه عن عباد, and does not remove it abruptly from the servant, ولكن يقبل العلم بقبض العلماء, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala remove ilm by the death of the ulama. And we see concern that, that the death of the ulama, so it shows concern that the death of the ulama, that this is something which is the removal of ilm. The removal of ilm, and in the past couple of years we have seen many of the ulama have passed away. So the death of the ulama, then this is, it shows that is knowledge being taken along with them. Also, another that they mentioned, another hadith that they have mentioned regarding this matter as an example regarding, but some of those hadith that under discussion. Then the next, so that's hadith mashhur by way of isnad. Then the ulama of hadith also have a nice itlaq on hadith al-mashhur. And this shuhra of hadith that they discuss is regarding hadith that are considered to be mashhur, etc. ala al-sina. So hadith that are said to be classed as mashhur, not by looking at the isnad, but more so of the hadith with a sahih or da'af, whether it is weak or not, but more so looking at hadith as being mashhur, based upon that the hadith is somewhat, it is widespread amongst the people. So we find a hadith that become a common hadith that is used by all, either in particular field or particular science of science, or hadith that are well common in particular science, or hadith that are said to be common on the tongues of even the general people, that this hadith is popular. This hadith is popular and commonly used by many. But the hadith is not looking at isnad, but looking at concerning how common this hadith amongst the people and how often it is used. So al-mashhur or mashhur غير istilahi is more so, is not per se istilahan, as we had mentioned before, but more so regarding ala al-sina, but using the word mashhur in this context of what is said to be mashhur by, it is a common hadith, widely used hadith amongst the people. And the people, as it being common, it may vary regarding of those who are said to be the learned. We find that in certain science, so the hadith are generally used. It's a common hadith that is used by the people of that science, without per se the hadith being authentic or not. And at times the hadith may be common in a science, used by many of the ulama of that science, but the hadith may be authentic, and also that hadith may be weak. But it's commonly used in that science as an example. And also you might find that amongst the common people, that also you might find that amongst the general people, hadith that are used, but it has no basis. May not be in a hadith. but is given the impression it's an hadith. Or hadith may be famous amongst the people used, but a hadith is not authentic, but people believe the hadith to be authentic. So they give an example regarding this particular matter, regarding concerning hadith. غير اصطلاحي يعني hadith al-mashhur, hadith is said to be mashhur on the lips of the people, that is commonly mentioned by the people. Of those hadith, طلب العلم فريضة على كل Muslim. So that hadith is common. But the hadith here is somewhat a discussion between ulama that they all hadith to be daif. But generally concern is past and used regarding when mentioned the virtue of ilm, this hadith is mentioned. So in discussing, relating hadith regarding the virtue of ilm, this hadith is commonly used and mentioned. But the ulama mentioned that of the past, that this hadith is daif. Of the ulama who takes the hadith to be daif, and you find those who of latter time who hold the hadith to be authentic. But the ulama of past, the scholars of the past, that they hold this hadith to be daif. And they have mentioned that, for example, As-Suyuti, rahimahullah ta'ala, wa ghafrallahu lah, that he have wrote a book on this. And he is the first of those who, in gathering all the narration of this hadith, then he came to the final conclusion that hadith is Sahih or Hasan. He is the first to authenticate this hadith. As-Suyuti, who was of the 9th century. Suyuti, who died 911. That is the first to authenticate this hadith. Before this, then this hadith was commonly passed as known to be daif in the circle of the ulama of hadith. But Suyuti, the first to authenticate the hadith. And then after, you find others who have somewhat followed that trend of authenticating this hadith based upon the numerous narration of this hadith. But all individually are daif. Do they all, when put together, clamped together, they give strength to each other? Then that's where now you find the discussion, both said of the ulama, those who say no, but we find that more of the contemporaries and latter scholars who hold it to be the case of they strengthen each other. That Imam Ahmed rahimahullah have mentioned regarding this hadith, قال فقال له مرة هذا كذب. Ahmed rahimahullah regarding the hadith that they mention طلب العلم فريضة على كل مسلم. Ahmed rahimahullah قال مرة هذا كذب. Then also he mentioned قال لا يثبت عندنا, that this hadith is not authentic with us. فيه شيء, that in it is something. So Ahmed rahimahullah have those statements regarding that hadith. They find that Al-Bayhaqi rahimahullah, he mentioned فقد قال هذا حديث يعني طلبة العلم فريضة على كل مسلم. هذا حديث شبه مشهور, is somewhat is close to being very famous. وإسناده ضعيف, and it is not ضعيف. وقد روي من أوجه, has been rated by different sources or different channels. كلها ضعيفة, all of which is ضعيف. So that's concerning a position taken by the other ulama of the past regarding the hadith that is famous, طلب العلم فريضة على كل مسلم. So that's concerned that matter. So those are some of the hadith. That's something I find a hadith that become very famous, but with the ulama of hadith may not be authentic. That may not be authentic. And also, for example, a hadith that is famous with the fuqaha. So in the book of the fuqaha, one of those hadith that are famous amongst, and mention the books of the fuqaha, that they'll mention the hadith in the bab at-talaq or bab al-zawaj, they'll mention abghadu halal ilallah at-talaq, that the most despised of halal with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talaq. The hadith rawahu Abu Dawood wa Ibn Majah. So the hadith is narrated by Abu Dawood wa Ibn Majah in their as-sunan. So this hadith is a popular hadith cited often in the books of the ulama of fiqh, and the books of fiqh, and used by the ulama al-fuqaha. So this hadith though, as the ulama mentioned regarding concerning this hadith, is da'if. That this hadith, with the ulama of hadith, is said to be da'if. This hadith is da'if in the ulama al-hadith. So it shows regarding hadith at times may be known, and sometimes hadith may be popular. Ulama mentioned la asla. It has no asl, it has no basis. It has no basis at all. It has no basis at all. And some hadiths are famous amongst the ulama, but also as a basis. That the hadith al-Muslim man salima al-Muslimun min lisani wa yadi, that the Muslim is the one that the Muslim are free, protected from harm, from his tongue and his hand. The hadith in the Bukhari and Muslim, that's a famous hadith, but it's authentic. So famous hadith, sometimes they're authentic, sometimes they may be famous but not authentic. So another hadith that they mentioned regarding concerning famous, that is mentioned, اختلاف أمتي رحمة, اختلاف أمتي رحمة. But this hadith also, as ulama mentioned, that hadith لا أصلها, it has no basis. Regarding, it has no isnad to the hadith, it has no reference to the books of hadith with isnad. So that's concerning that matter. So you might find, so it's important regarding for the person, the talib al-ilm, that in using a hadith, that he verify and checked, even the hadith may be famous. So verification is very important before the hadith is used or mentioned or passed on to others. So books of in fiqh, that's important that the talib al-ilm, that when he's teaching of fiqh or aqidah, that he reference those sources properly and check the grading of those hadith to ensure that he knows the ruling that have been passed by the ulama of hadith on this matter. And better for the person to check regarding what is said by the ulama of the past, the older, the ulama al-awail, the older scholar, and also compare what is said by the more latter day scholar, the more contemporary of the ulama. So compare between what is said by the scholars of the past, or scholars of old, of compared to what is said by the scholar of more contemporary times. Then with this also you find that the ulama, that they have written on this particular topic. So of the ulama who have tried to gather books on this particular on this topic by collecting hadith that are somewhat widespread and common and famous amongst the people and in certain books. So they have tried to gather hadith on this particular area, so as to clarify regarding the authenticity or lack of authenticity of some of those hadith. So of those that they have mentioned regarding of those works in this area, that you find that of the early ones who have written a book on this topic, which is Badr ad-Din al-Zarkashi, Badr ad-Din al-Zarkashi, who died 794 al-Hijri, of the first to have written on this particular topic, or book of research on this particular topic, where he wrote a book that's called Al-Aliyah Al-Manthura fi Ahadith Al-Mashhura. Al-Ali Manthura fi Ahadith Al-Mashhura, or he referred to as Tadhkira fi Ahadith Al-Mushtahara, also referred to as Tadhkira fi Ahadith Al-Mushtahara. Also of those who have written on this topic, also you find Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani rahimahullah. Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani rahimahullah, that have written on this topic. And the book of Zarkashi, to my record, that available, that the book available. Then also you find of those who have written that we have Ali Manthura fi Ahadith Al-Mashhura. So Ibn Hajar rahimahullah also did a work on this, that he called, that the book is called Al-Ali Al-Manthura fi Ahadith Al-Mashhura. As for the book of Ibn Hajar rahimahullah, it's not per se that mentioned that, that is not yet in print, is not in print. That is not known to be in print or not available. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it available, and one of the talib al-ilm or ba'is that they're able to if they're able to find this book, if it's available, and to put and print this book. Then also another of those work in this field, that is the more famous of the more famous work, Al-Maqasid Al-Hasana fi Bayan Kathir min Ahadith Al-Mushtahara ala Al-Sina. And this work is by As-Sakhawi. So Sakhawi rahimahullah, that of the student of Ibn Hajar rahimahullah, that he wrote this work and he died 902 As-Sakhawi rahimahullah. So he wrote this book Al-Maqasid Al-Hasana fi Bayan Kathir min Ahadith Al-Mushtahara Al-Alsina. And that book is in print. And that's one of the more famous and that book more renowned of those books in this field. Of the more renowned, that book, the more recent of print, which is the more better of the print, good print of this book, that is in about 4 to 5 volumes. It's about, it comes in many volumes, and this is the book of Sakhawi, that's the most renowned, and they said Ajal, the most revered book in this particular, on this particular topic. So Sakhawi rahimahullah, that they mentioned for Talib al-Ilm, that is important having this book. So you have many prints, but important for Talib al-Ilm to have this particular print. They found out one of the ulama that came after Sakhawi, and they kind of somewhat tried to condense this. So they kind of somewhat tried to summarize the work of Sakhawi. And that book also in print, which is Tamyiz al-Tayyib min al-Khabith fima yadur ala al-Alsina an-Nas min Hadith. And that is written by Ibn Baybi' al-Shaybani. So he wrote this work, and this book also, again recently, that a new print of this book. So the book also is in print. This book, Tamyiz al-Tib, Tamyiz al-Tib min Khabith fima yadur al-Alsina an-Nas min Hadith, that by al-Shaybani, that is also a book that is in print, which is a summary of the book of Sakhawi, which is a larger work. And others who have worked on As-Suyuti rahimahullah also make a summary of the word of Zarkashi. So As-Suyuti, who, as we mentioned, that Suyuti 911 al-Hijri, that also he made a summary of this work, that his work is called Ad-Durr Muntashira fi Ahadith Mushtahara. So that we said that by Suyuti rahimahullah, and that's a summary of the work of At-Tadhkira by Al-Zarkashi. So those are some of the works that are in this field that are there. Another work that also that is mentioned and to be mentioned as another important work, that book is called Kash al-Khafa wal-Mazil al-Iltibas Ilbas Amma Ishtahar min Ahadith ala al-Sina an-Nas. So this work, Kashf al-Khafa wal-Mazil al-Ilbas, and this work is by Ajluni, and he died 1162. He died 1162 al-Hijri. And this concept now, this work also, it's in print. This book also is in print. This is one of the Awsa book on this topic. So that book also an important book in this field. So the person who is able to can gather the book of Az-Zarkashi, the book of Suyuti, whatever one have access to, but important to have the work of Sakhawi, Maqasid al-Hasana, and also Khash al-Khafa, that also those two work important that field, also At-Tamyiz, At-Tib. So whatever that is available, the person who is into Hadith, have the interest in Hadith, that he gather as much of those work as possible. But the Maqasid al-Hasana, Khash al-Khafa are important works to have, and others. As for Ajluni, just something to add, that there's two things regarding his work that and what is contained in it, two things to factor in. That I mentioned one, that fi ikhtisar. So what has been mentioned by Sakhawi, he kind of somewhat try to summarize what has mentioned by Sakhawi. It is additional, but is summary of what was done by Sakhawi in Maqasid al-Hasana, that at times that ikhtisar is fi khalal, fi sometimes things of deficiency that not so, that at times may not represent what is mentioned by Sakhawi properly. So in brief, what he summarized of Sakhawi may not represent what is mentioned by Sakhawi properly. That's one of the setbacks of the work of Ajluni. And the second setback of the work of Ajluni, the caution of that book also, Ajluni is a mutasawwif. He's of the people of tasawwuf. Not just tasawwuf, as I said, tasawwuf fi darajatil al-ula, of the highest level of tasawwuf. So can somewhat tasawwuf of those who are very staunch in his tasawwuf. And this sometimes impact on this work. So this sometimes impact on this work because of him being of highly tasawwuf and of the ghulat, of those who can somewhat of their peak of tasawwuf, very much into his tasawwuf, then this also adds some influence on his book and on his work of this book, Kash al-Khafa. So you see something which is a bit strange that he may mention, so want to be mindful of this. So yes, the work of the ulama wal-ba'ithin wa talabat al-ilm, based upon their belief and their maslak, that sometimes that can have an impact on their work. But one can see that it have an impact on their work where they defend things that shouldn't be defended. But because that's their way inclined, they'll sometimes defend things that are the undefensible. فَاللَّهُ مُسْتَعَانْ وَعَلَيْهِ تُقْلَانِ. So overall, that this is the next area that is mentioned by Ibn Hajar rahimullah, where he mentioned after mutawatir, then he discussed regarding al-mashhur, al-mustafid. With this, inshallah ta'ala, we'll come to an end regarding this session, which is the 5th session, regarding discussing the book that is titled Talkhis Nukhbatul Fikr. This Nukhbatul Fikr is a talkhis of the book Nukhbatul Fikr by Ibn Hajar, but the one who have done this talkhis, it is Sheikh Al-Doctor Ustad Umar Muqbil, Hafidh Allah Tabarak Ta'ala wa Ra'ahu, who have done this work. Wa billahi ta'ala tawfiq wa adil as-sabil.